questions. The first question I have is, who are we asking?
Yeah, that's such a good one. So
Yeah, it's kind of a big one.
I know it really is. And a lot of your questions that you asked, I love that I don't know the answers. Like I
Yeah,
literally, and it was so fun because I was just like, oh my God, that's why I was so excited. So when like the internet went out, I was like, no, I really need this. I want to know too. So I'm
yeah.
asking just as you're asking. And so
Hmm.
I rarely ask. The only time I tell you is from my experience, and I will share
Hmm.
those types of things. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that. So
Okay.
if you could ask again, and then I'm just going to
Yeah,
kind of close my eyes for a second and just tune in and see what we get. So go ahead.
sure. Yeah, so when we're asking questions, who are we asking?
Hmm. Yeah. So the first thing I get intuitively and just like so direct is I just got very loud yourself.
Mm,
So I feel like what they, and when I say they, and I don't know if you saw that, I don't, let's see, the timestamp is like basically an hour into this,
mhm,
because there was like this orb that just went over. The When I'm saying they, I call that my spirit team. It's not really
mm,
I don't even want to put the word my spirit team, but
mhm,
it is the people, the energies that I use. So I do use my spirit guides. I have one specific one that I work with who I met very long time ago,
mm,
and I got actually confirmation, which I was very excited about that. I'll tell you about that another time. But it's spirit guides, angels, and loved ones. To me, when I say they, I'm really more talking about a collective consciousness. So,
mm,
but because it's never one, even though
mm,
it's the totality of one, it's not just one. So,
mm,
even like if I were to say God, I don't view God as one. I view it as a collective,
mm.
as a la la la. I don't even like,
Yeah,
oh, there's not even a word for it, to be very honest. So, can you tell me your question one more time?
yeah. When we're asking questions, who are we asking?
So I definitely, so this is where they do is they pause. So it is definitely yourself. There is a collective consciousness. Oh, what is my bubbles? It's because I'm Italian, so I'm like always using my hands. Anyway, I do feel like, or else it's like universe being like, good job.
Yeah, I was gonna say, quite the confirmation.
Right. There's my emoji
Yes.
validation. I definitely get it. We're asking ourselves. And so
Yeah.
it's like how our brain does know. It's like, when you lose something and you're
Mm,
kind of like, and there's a method to, if you have a lost object, you can go online and do a numerology lost object finder or something like that. And you type in numbers, and it's usually 9 digits, and it's 1 through 9, and you just type in random numbers. And the reason, and then you have a number that says 41, let's say, and
yeah.
41, numerology speaking, will be like, oh, it's by your shoes, or da 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 da, something like that.
Yeah.
And the reason why that works, and it does work, and it's really great to do it, and then when you do find it, go back of being like, oh, that's why. So you're giving that situation
Mm,
validation, that information that's coming from a higher part. Like we only use a tiny part of our brain, as you know. And so
yeah.
it's just kind of like we do know on a bigger way. And so
Hmm.
now when they're saying yourself, they're saying it not just of the brain, of saying activating the
Hmm.
brain, but the brain is tied to a bigger consciousness. You know what I'm saying? So it's yourself. If you understand yourself, that there's no, oh my gosh, it's switched, what is happening? It's like because of my hands. Anyway, I don't know what's happening. um Story of my life. But that consciousness
Hmm.
is coming in of, we are all of it. We are both, the both
Hmm.
sides of it. We are the yes and the no. We are the yin and the yang. We are
Hmm.
the knowing, the not knowing. We are the consciousness, all of it. So everything that we get, the information, is not a willful information. This is nothing, anything that you get isn't to do something. There's no
Hmm.
direction here. Nobody's telling you to do something. Look at that flip around. Anyway, there's nobody's telling us to do something. So that's really, really important to understand, because we still have free will, and we're supposed to have free will. We're
Mhm.
supposed to live our life how we would prefer it. We just want to keep it a preference.
Mm.
Okay. So there's not like, especially like even in astrology, okay, you like people are like, oh, well, great. Now I shouldn't go and do and hang out with friends because my horoscope says da 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 da. And it's
Mhm.
just like, no, it's just a suggestion of this is what's going to come up. So still hang out with friends, just be prepared. That's what
Mhm.
intuition does. It's a preparation. It's so your energy body doesn't take a massive hit when things are really hard. Okay.
Mm.
So,
Interesting.
for instance, in an example, I was in a car accident, severe car accident in 1999, which altered my entire life. I had a closed head injury. That was the main thing that altered everything. And very long story short, when I saw the whole thing happen before it happened, and this is when I didn't know I was psychic. I didn't like
Mm.
I kind of shunned that because I didn't want to be. I thought, let someone else do that. That's not of my, I was a massage therapist, neuromuscular massage therapist. I was way more interested in that than doing, reading for people or stuff like that. I was like, God, that's a terrible job. Like, I don't want to not know anything. So anyhow, so I saw the whole accident happen. But I didn't know, like, I just knew that these people I saw, and literally I actually ended up seeing the people who hit us before they hit us. And like, so I got to see it in the physical. And then after I saw them in the physical, they were driving like erratic. And I was like, oh my God, I don't feel good about them. And why am I even reacting? Who cares? Da da da. And it was just so creepy. And we actually passed the car 5 minutes prior to or 10 minutes prior to the accident. And then I had this whole thing happen where I could feel the accident. Like I felt our whole car. I was a passenger in the car. And there was 4 people, all different ages. So all different generations. It was very
Mm.
fascinating. We were going up skiing. And so the people, I felt the car smash in. I felt that we were in an accident. It was just horrible. And I got really scared. And so here's intuition happening without my permission,
Mhm.
and it's streaming in. And I'm like, no, like, absolutely not. So then we get in a car accident, and I couldn't understand when we were in the car accident. I remember afterward, I'm sitting in the passenger seat, just like split second afterward, and the airbags didn't deploy, which was not good. But um I remember sitting there and being like, how do I know who hit us? I knew everything. I knew I knew it was two men in the driving. I knew the car. I knew it was a Bronco. I knew all these different things. And it was really like, I couldn't understand. And I'm looking in the mirrors being like, why do I know this? How do I know this? And I couldn't see anything in the mirrors. So I'm like, why, how am I? And I couldn't understand. And I got out of the car, I can't even remember at this point, but I just remember being like, and then I got validation of who it was. And I was like, how did I know that? So
Mm.
there was years worth of guilt of like, why didn't I tell my friend
Mm.
to pull over? She wouldn't have listened to me anyway, but like, why did I get up to go skiing that day? I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have did all these avoidance, all these protection, measures. And so intuition came and said, intuition comes as neutral. It does not. So what we're hearing and I need to talk. So remind me about the hearing part, because I got to talk
Okay.
about that. But what we're hearing, what we're getting, what we're receiving, that information is coming from consciousness, which we are a giant part of. We're not even a tiny part of. We're a giant part of. We
Mm.
make it up. You know what I'm saying? We are essentially, in my belief, the God of it.
Mm.
Okay. So we are like the start of it, of life itself, because from what I understand and what I've experienced, there is no time and space.
Mhm.
So when you take time out, there's no like this accomplishment. There's no in it. There's no like dot dot dot. So we are living all of it. We are all components. So I am technically the people that hit us. I am the car. I am the energy. I am dot 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 dot.
Mm.
But that blows my mind. So
Yeah.
back to like Vanessa land, what it is that when I'm asking, when this intuition comes, it is not, it is for the protection of being embodied as Vanessa, as the experience of Vanessa here in a very linear way, time, all of it. You know what I'm saying? And that's enough. And that's perfect right now in this time and space. So that intuition was helping me prepare my body for something that I would have probably left from, because I'm really good at going out of my body. Like things that are like not satisfactory to me, I'm like, peace out, people. Like, I am not doing this, you know. And that's what I struggled with actually all through high school, was going out of my body. So yeah, I mean, maybe I'll kind of actually touch a little bit based on that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, so like, that's why I think I'm also such a big, and it taught me, and why I'm such a big proponent of being in the body, because intuition isn't out there. Intuition is the activation. So we always try to achieve. It's just like intuition is another sense, and it's just an awakened sense. So we take, you know, oh, well, we see through our eyes. Guess what? Our eyes are on our body. We taste, we hear, you know, all these, we smell. So we touch, you know, all these things are in the body. So why is intuition outside of the body? And
It's
so to me,
interesting. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go
No,
ahead.
no, I think it's interesting because my suspicion is that most people think, who are less familiar, that it is outside. Like the idea that you said, oh, I just want to be open to everything, right? Like just be open. But the idea is like, actually, we're dealing with high energies. We need to be in our body. Like I think for some people that would be new to them, right? And yeah, so that's just like kind of, I wonder, you know, I think for people who are newer to this kind of way of thinking, and I think there'd be a lot of, no kidding, because like for me, that's how I was feeling just then. I was like, that's interesting. Yeah, it's like the idea of intuition being inside the body. I like that as like a kind of a shift of what I would have anticipated, because it feels, for a lot of people, I would imagine it feels kind of foreign, the concept, or they wouldn't let themselves be comfortable with it, so then they place it outside themselves.
Yeah, because it's easier to achieve. From it's like we're such like a consumerism, you know, embodiment, you know, and we want. So we're thinking if we don't have, we just have to go get.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, but instead, because it's almost insulting, and it is to the ego, that this is in me all along. Like, I will tell you, I will be very insulted, you know, with the things that I want and I can't get. And then I'm like, oh, like if someone be like, you've had the power all along, you know, some dark, you know, whatever. And it's just kind of like, it's insulting. And so it almost insults our intelligence, but it's not meant to be insulting. It's meant to be awakening. And so it's like, you know how you have to constantly remember, like, for instance, Steve, my husband, just said this, and I thought this was so good. And I was just really struggling in a financial situation, not financially money wise, but like financially stability wise with something. And just like, why isn't this happening? Or why is this happening to us? Or, you know, all the human questions. And just like aggravated, just purely aggravated, no longer even trying, just like, what the hell, universe?
Right.
And he said something, and he's like, what do you want your bank account to be? I'm like, I don't know. And then I was just like, above what it is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he's like, pick a number. And he's like, reasonable, not like, you know, millions or something. And so I just picked a number. And then I was just like, he's like, just see it as that. Because he's been kind of joking, like he's been laughing about it because he lost his, they laid him off, And so we've been in this like really hard space. And he's been doing this. He's like, I don't know what's going on, but my bank account literally has been rising, and I don't have a job that's paying me for it to rise. So I don't know how this is happening. So it's been like this phenomenon. We've kind of been joking, but you can't count on that. So there's no
Right.
stability in that. So like mentally in my mind, I'm like, well, I don't care because I want stability and, screw that. I'm so tired of living like this ethereal life of like, oh,
Yeah.
well, whatever comes, I have to just be okay with. And it's just like, that really sucks. But that is my life. I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So he started doing this. And so it's like that, like to be able, you have to do the work of being able to focus on what you want. And it's not that you're pulling it from outside of yourself, you're activating it within yourself. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And so it's just like, there's literally like, and it was so simple and so small. And I love actually the small ones that all of a sudden there was a check. And then he's just like, oh, you already signed it. You must have deposited it. It was just from some credits situation. And then it was just like, no. And then he checked. He's like, oh, wait, you didn't deposit it. How weird. So it was like all these little things that
Yeah.
come through of like, oh, it's never how we expect. So
Right.
intuition is the same thing. It is not something that we go and access outside of ourselves. It's the awakening within ourselves. And the more, but it takes work. And the work is the practice. So the
Here's a,
more, so like for me, that
yeah.
money thing was, can I practice seeing and feeling, not just
Mm,
seeing, really feeling my bank
mm,
account of what does that feel like? It's just increasing. And I'm like, And so I have that split moment and I try to draw out that moment of that feeling more and more and more. That's intuition. That's you accessing it. That's you activating it, within you. And
mhm.
then it just comes so easy, like when
Yeah.
I say, oh, when I got the thing yourself, all I did was close my eyes and there it said in bright letters, in white letters, it actually said, it was a black background in white letters. It just says in all capitals, yourself. I didn't get that. It's not through
Mhm.
here. It's through this.
Mhm.
And when I say this, when you're saying open yourself, because we're that big, we tend to see, oh, we're just in our body. Our body's just, this is the walls, these are the limitations. Like, no, energetically, our body's huge. That's why I always say be in your vortex. Your vortex is your bigger body. Your vortex is your big body. Like I am like at least 2 feet out from me. I'm like, a
Mhm.
big sumo wrestler, like,
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's really, and that's like also a really nice, fun thing. I do games with that of like
Oh,
how to
fun.
really be in your body, how to really like exercise that energy. And that's
Hmm.
also in the program that I'm teaching of like, just like, and it's so important because it pulls all the miracles. That's, if you want to talk about manifestation, that's how things manifest. When you're in your body, it can be in the physical. It can't be, because intuition and everything is inside of you. It can't show
Yeah.
up if you're not home. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And we want it to show up in the physical. That's how you do it. And I just
Well,
learned something right at this moment. I don't know this. When I'm speaking, I
yeah.
don't know. I literally,
Okay.
and that's why I need you guys to be able to pose those types of questions, because I am just as excited to get the answer,
Yeah.
as you
Yeah,
guys.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
so that gives me some space for some follow-up questions.
Yeah.
I think being in our body is important. I know a lot of people who want to improve their intuition. Obviously, you have a whole little, you're teaching that.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if you're going to provide a link, if that's something you want to like put out there, but
Yeah. I guess I
yeah,
should.
yeah, no, I think a lot of people would like to work on it. And then, so I guess one of the questions I have is how how do you know if you're doing it right? And I guess a tangential question, if it kind of comes around, is like, what things do we do that are obviously helpful? And I think you touched on that. And what things do we do that we kind of impede ourselves? Maybe it's kind of like a common practice or a common mistake that people make. Because I feel like I know a lot of people who are like, I just had a conversation last night with a dear friend of mine, and she was talking about how she's been working on her intuition, and um, she felt it, and she questioned it because she feels like she's not that intuitive of a person, even though I think she is, and
Mm.
she ended up getting 5 validations, again the number 5, in the course of 5 hours, or no, sorry, not 5 hours, 24 hours. And that was, it felt like that was the beginning of her starting to trust herself. But so yeah, so I guess it would pose a question, like, how do we improve it, and what are some of the mistakes that people make around that?
So funny. So it's interesting. I actually have never gotten this before of how they're answering.
Mm,
They being me, being us, being
hmm.
totality, is that they're saying love, love, love,
Hmm.
love, like just being in the consciousness of love. And it's really loving the self, that you are enough, like kind of like silencing that
Mm,
voice of um even the need of validation. Like try to get it first and then you can validate afterward,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. I love your friend's story, because that's just everybody's experience. And I love that she took the courage to do it anyway. So that's it. That's
Mm,
the answer to your question, to do it anyway. So you're not going to do, it's not like school of where you learn something and then you apply it.
mm.
You're learning by not knowing. It's actually unschooling. And
Mm,
this is why I am so grateful I failed at school,
mm,
because I was able to actually use something that I was terrible at and succeed. You know what I'm saying? I used that. I could not learn. I could not learn how I was taught. The way I learned, I mean, I literally would sleep on my books. That didn't do, Edgar Casey, the sleeping psychic. I don't know if you know him. He's in Virginia. He was in Virginia Beach. He's like a
oh.
1950s psychic, essentially. Uh-oh, my internet is unstable. Please, whatever works. Just say that,
All right.
whatever works. I'm not even going to ask, which is whatever works.
Sure.
Um, no begging. Um, but the Edgar Casey is the sleeping psychic, and he basically would sleep on books and know and understand and learn things about anything, like of medical stuff. He's basically a medical medical medium,
Mm,
essentially.
yeah.
And so he would learn things, and he did Akashic records and da 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 da. Anyway, I was like, I'm not learning anything, trying to study. So why don't I sleep on my books? I didn't do that well, but one time I remember I took a test and I said, screw it. I don't know this. So I just went through, and it was really great because it was multiple choice. So it was like A, B, C, or D kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, D, D, D. I just went super fast. I'm like, do, 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 do. I didn't think. I got a B. And I was like, where I would have probably gotten an F if I tried.
Yeah.
Like, I was so impressed. I was like, oh my God. So the next time I did it, I totally failed. Okay. So, because it's like, it didn't work. So that was it. It was because I didn't have, I couldn't put anything more into it. I couldn't put care into it. I couldn't try. I just couldn't try. There was nothing on top of it. I set myself up to, I'm probably going to fail, and there's nothing else I can do. So I let go. So
Mm,
how do you know you're doing it right? You're not, you know what I'm saying? And you do it anyway, because the right and wrongness, that's been socially structured into our mindset of that's how it should be. We
hmm.
should know, we should be right. And this is the best part. Intuition, and this is what I teach in the course. Intuition has, I specifically, when I put people together and we do like interactions of like, okay, read, this situation or whatever. And then I ask people, everybody raise your hand who got it wrong. And I'm like,
Hmm.
these are the people I want to talk to, because you getting
Mm,
it wrong teaches you what you got and to not judge that. And now
mm,
it's going to show up how it's actually right, but not in the way that you want it to be. All the people who got it
mm,
right, they're like applauding themselves. I'm like, oh, I'm intuitive. It's just like, yeah, but don't you want to learn from where you got it wrong? Because where you got it wrong is teaching you how you listen to intuition. Nobody listens to intuition the same way.
Oh,
There's
interesting.
not like, there isn't like when they're like, oh, they're talking about the clairs, like clairaudience or clairsentience, if you hear psychically or if you touch psychically. I am not a fan of that at all because that's an identifying feature. Again, it's a schooling. I'm not a fan of school. You can't teach this. You have to experience this. So you do it anyway. You test yourself, quietly. Nobody has to know, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? What's the time on the clock? Oh, I keep on getting 11, 11, 11. See, like, so now, right now, it said my clock just came up. It says Thursday, July 11. That's the only thing I just saw. 11, and then it says 10:22. 11 and 22 are my birthday, first of all. And it's also, master numbers. So it's just kind of like the reason. So I'm not like, oh man, it's not 10, 11, saying
Right.
I would never go to that place. In the very beginning, I absolutely would, because I
Yeah.
was so concentrated on being right. Right doesn't make you learn. It doesn't make it right. Actually, it makes it kind of dumb. It makes that you're not paying attention, that you're more fascinated with the ego and needing to pacify it than being wrong. I love my majority of my readings are look at first that I'm wrong, always. And it's just like, the worst thing is I have to tell the people prior of like, okay, this might not make sense. And I have to like brace them for me being wrong because I know it's going to look like I'm wrong. Like, I cannot have any ego. Like, I would be crying every day if I had any ego in my
Right.
readings. And the reason for that, so it's like the most humble job you could possibly do. But when you do it for yourself, you don't, when it's quiet, nobody's going to be judging you.
Sure.
Just make sure you don't judge you. So then you're going to ask, why did I get that information that's coming through if it came up wrong? Let me look for it in a different way of how it's showing up. I might be misreading it, of thinking it has to be, it has to be an 11. Oh, well, maybe right now I just saw numbers, and this is now leading me to, compute, I have this much amount of time before we have to kind of like wrap this up or whatever. There's other intuition isn't there to serve you to pacify your ego. It's not there to
Okay.
be like, good job, Vanessa. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Or like, bravo, you're getting better. It has nothing to do that. It's not a measurement. It's an activation. It's actually there to help you. So it's helping the body. It's serving you on some higher purpose. It's relaxing your energy field so you're not so reactive to the density of this earth. You know what I'm saying? So in that car accident, I wasn't supposed to protect myself. I wasn't supposed to go and say, oh, I wasn't supposed to go and say, oh, I shouldn't have went with that person, da, 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 da. It was protecting my energy field to say, this is what's happening. So you're accepting what is, okay? So you're accepting what is, whatever's coming in, and your intuition is saying, I got you. I got you. We're going to go through this. I got you, whatever it is. And there's hard stuff that we go through. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have gone through that, or you even should have gone through that. It's that we're taking the experience out of what's happening and we're learning from the experience of it. There's always good in every experience, even and I'm talking about like even the trauma situations. It doesn't mean that the thing is, it had to happen. So whatever is happening had to happen. It's not just about us. So the information, even if we're quiet about it and it's just us, it's still not about us because we are the totality. We are the whole. Everything, your friend developing her intuition in that very moment, that's energetically changing the entire frequency of people who's in the room, even if she's quiet about it, or if you're talking about it, whatever. It's changing the frequency of everything. Of her saying yes to herself. Yes, I'm willing to not know. So I'm asking almost an open-ended question, and that's when it leads to other things. And then have all these discoveries. And then I love that meaning she paid attention to the other things that arose. Most people are like, no, not intuitive. I suck. Next.
Yeah.
And they shut down and shut that door. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
you just missed everything.
Mm.
You know, and so you have to unschool yourself from
Sure.
that propaganda that's in your head of thinking that to know something, you have to be right. And it's
Mm.
actually the opposite. Pretty
Mm.
much everything in the intuitive world is opposite than what we've been programmed to believe. Everything, you know, it's to
Can
say,
you give some
take death.
examples?
So death, like
Okay.
it's the end. It's something to be feared. It's a no, I don't want that. Why? Are
Yeah.
you kidding me? Like, but me included. Oh God, no, I'm not
Yeah.
ready. You know, I want
Yeah.
the will, I want the ego, I want,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? What if we would start saying, I want to everything that's showing up? I want to not have a job right now. Meaning
Yeah.
stability of my husband's jobs.
Yeah.
I want this. What the heck? I don't want that, you know? So our
Yeah.
mind
Yeah.
is like this constant, like, and what if we said that? So that was the same thing of like when I was saying, as Steve said, do your bank account. Just focus on something that you can control. You can control this. Can't control
Right.
this, but you can
Right.
control this. And so we put the mind, the intuition is inside, the intuition is awakening. Now activate the mind to get it in gear. The mind is like the epicenter, which we think is the godness of it, but it's not. The mind is the doer, is the way to
Mm.
make our arms work to get this in motion. When I said, oh my gosh, I'm really afraid, like the internet was unstable and kept on blipping out, I got in my car. I didn't get in my car to go to town to go work, which I didn't want to do because I didn't want to do this reading in my vehicle, but I went anyway. I didn't have the intention. I fully surrendered that intention of saying, I just need to call you. That's the only intention
Mm-hmm.
that I had to do. I didn't set it up any further. And then all of a
Mm.
sudden, literally, Steve had to stop me, run outside and stop my car. And he's just like, stop. He's like, it just turned on. And I'm like, what? So the
Amazing.
mind is the worker, it's the worker bee.
Mm-hmm.
And it's underused. We put it into control instead
Mm-hmm.
of, no, you work for us. So
Mm.
intuition is the God, is our connection, is the holiness, is the, oh, this is it. Okay, now do that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So yeah. And then the validation is like the personality. It's like, yeah, this feels good. We need ego.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think things should be egoless, and it's just like, no, we're here human. We do need ego. The
Mm.
ego activates us into the feel good. So it's like
Mm.
the starter. It's the reaching. It wants. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So it's just like we want to want. That's a
Yeah.
good thing, you know. Even if you're a monk and you are like, I am, you know, you want to meditate. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? The monk wants that. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
there's still the ego of that, and so
Mm.
we use that. The problem is everything is underused. The mind is misused. The intuition is underused. The ego is overused. For instance,
Right.
what you were saying about your computer and your how you were trying to connect your AirPods and so
Yeah.
forth, that kind of stuff, that's intuition. So
How
it's
so?
very, yeah. So it's like, it's frequent to me, it's frequency. So how I always see it is that when intuition, when we're getting the information, like how I like actually visually see it, is that,
Yeah.
and I always kind of try to describe it like this, is that for us, we're raising our frequency because we're very dense. We're in body, you know,
Yeah.
we matter. And so we're raising our frequency. Spirit guides, loved ones, I just say consciousness, they
Yeah.
are lowering theirs, because when you leave the body, you're just like super, how I see it is you're just super, you're beyond matter. So it's just like you're able to like be just so vibrationally potent. And so that in a way is a different level. And so neither is good or bad, but they are beyond body. So they are now lowering theirs. So we are raising ours, they are lowering theirs. And now we're meeting in this middle frequency. And it's literally to
Mm-hmm.
me a stream of consciousness. It literally looks like a stream, like a river.
Mm.
And when I have a client, and or if I'm just reading people, I'm literally kind of, and I don't like super visualize this just because it's natural to me, but I
Mm-hmm.
used to, where it's like I'm dipping our toes into that consciousness. So it's
Mm.
just like I'm literally kind of holding your hand. I'm sitting right beside you and holding your hand, of being like, I'm here with you. Like it's like, even though, like, because I could feel their nerves, I could feel the energy of like, oh my God, like what's gonna happen? You know, all that
Yeah.
anticipation and so forth. It was just so natural. I mean, I just remember, like, especially in the beginning, that happened to me for years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I always say it's like my job is like showing up to a job without knowing what the job is. You know, so now I have to like all of a sudden be a lawyer or something. Like it's like
Yeah.
it's horrifying. You know,
Yeah.
and somehow I have to get hired. You know, so it's like you like sitting literally in the stream of consciousness, and we're just like, because when I had my NDE, that when I got to experience love, that became such, that's all it felt like. It felt like water, like how water touches your skin, and what do
Yeah.
you feel? You feel warmth. That was love. So that's how I kind of see it, is that
Yeah.
stream of consciousness, like that watery maybe stream, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not water, is all knowing, is
Mm.
because you're knowing, you're all knowing, you know. So it's the activation, the invitation in to
Mm-hmm.
awakening that feeling inside. And that's, you know, you're the great mystery.
Mm.